economic, and political impact of public policy on the African American community. Your host, Kelly Michael Williams, is a political strategy veteran with an undefeated campaign record and the political experience that spans nearly 3 decades, from Mayor Willie Brown in California to President Barack Obama in our nation's capital. So get ready for a fresh and honest approach on the politics that affect you and your family the most. Now, your host, Kelly Michael Williams.
For tonight's broadcast. Again, my name is Kelly Michael Williams. I want to thank you for joining us and appreciate you joining us live right here for the It's About Us Town Hall series. And tonight is our final show for our summer series. And we're excited that we've had the support from all of you for joining us throughout this summer. To put on these town halls, to bring out different people from across the country to talk to us about various aspects of our social, economic, and political impact on the Black community and how and what it means to us, especially leading up to this election 8 days away. 8 days, Black folks, 8 days, and my white listeners, 8 days. And I need you to understand that that is what's real. We are working right now to, even though this is our final town hall series show, we are working to do a live stream on election eve. So that Monday, November 2nd, we're working to get other panelists, some of our returning panelists, to join us on that night as well. So if you would like to see that, if you would like to participate in that, please hit us up on Facebook and on YouTube in the comment section and let us know. And then, of course, you can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Black Politics Today. And certainly let us know that you want to join us. And if you have a particular interest of who you'd like us to try to get and book, we will certainly entertain those suggestions and comments as well. Our regular Black Politics Today broadcast, What's at Stake, on Monday night that we normally do when we're not doing the town hall series. We're going to be working on that. So beginning in 2021, we'll go back to live streaming as we were doing back in the studio. And so we'll be doing this right here. So it will be like a town hall setting. We're going to live stream it, and we'll be doing that each week for our broadcast in 2021. So we're going to gear up for that. We're going to work on that as well because the response that we've gotten from the town halls has been positive and it's been good. And so I'm thinking that maybe if we can get some of our guests to join us and you can actually see them as opposed to just listening to them on the radio and the broadcast, be more engaging. You guys can comment in the comment section. You can call in. You can talk to us more, ask questions, share your comments, because certainly regardless of who wins this election, it's going to be something that we're going to continue. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the rest of the year off after the election day. We will maybe have that one show, that one Monday show after election day. And then we're going to go back and start rebranding and relaunching so that we can lay out the Black Reset that we talked about. The text that we asked you to do. So text us at TBR 20, your first name, your last name, your email. You don't have to share that, Brian, but that's what we wanted to do. We want to engage you so we can empower our communities, engage in the process of change, because regardless of who wins, that's what we're going to need to do. Regardless of who wins the election, Black folks, we must engage. We must engage like never before. If Biden gets in, we got to hold him accountable. If Trump gets in, we're going to have to do something because we can't hold him accountable. We're going to have to do something. So whatever the case is, that's what we're going to be doing. And that's why I'm motivated to going back to the live streams and sharing with us, because we have to prepare an agenda. We have to prepare a strategy, and we have to implement that agenda. And if we can do that, then maybe at every level of government, we can sort of put things together. And I'm going to do my best to drive interest and drive initiatives and support any and every organization that I can out there. And I pray and hope that you'll support us and what we're doing, because I got some initiatives that I want to put out there, some bold, some controversial, some targeted initiatives that will take us over the next 30 years to make sure that Black America, we are not at the end of the bottom of the barrel like we've been in so many other aspects and so many other areas. So what I want you to do is help us to put together the social, the economic, the racial economic, and the political agenda to help push our elected leaders, from school board to water resource agent to county commissioner to county council to whoever, whatever, at every level. Because let's be real, we have not been engaged at every level of our democracy. We have not been engaged at every level to understand exactly what's at stake for us. We've sat on our asses every off year and we vote every 4 years. And what has happened is that all these states have implemented all these darn laws that now we bitch, scrap, and complain about, that we should have been voting on to make sure that they didn't get in office to put in place. And so if these last 4 years, 3.5 years haven't taught you something or shown you something, get the hell off this, go sit down, because I'm not talking to you. Because clearly you still got your head in the sand and don't know what the hell you're doing. But if you are listening and watching and you do understand, then let's get to work and let's do something, because we need to get engaged more so than ever. Because if you're in your 40s right now and this chick that they're going to vote on in the next 10 minutes to put on the bench, yeah, your asses are in trouble. So let's get real. All right, let's get real about it and let's put something out there. If you're a business, if you're an individual, if you're a corporation, we invite you to support our efforts. We're a nonprofit. We definitely need your support and insight and wisdom and support. So get started tonight by texting to TBR20. Text TBR20, first name, last name, email to 59769. Put that up for me, Brian. There we go. Text TBR20, a space, your first name, another space, your last name, a space in your email to 59769. That's the Black Reset. And that's what we're going to start engaging. You'll receive an email from us through the course between now and the first of the year. We're going to start putting together the whole agenda and things that we want to do. And we want information and insight from you. I mean, if there's things that you want to discuss, things you want to talk about, things that we need to be focused on, let's have that discussion. Let's work together. Let's put it together, because that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. And we need to engage and empower Black America to do so. Because if we continue to sit on our asses, we're going to continue to get what we've gotten. So let's wake up. We complain about the Democratic Party. We complain about the Republican Party. But until we do something, our complaints are virtually, useless. I mean, we're sitting there bitch, crying, complaining, but we're not getting out and engaging, because all we're doing is voting, but we're not advocating. We're not lobbying. We're not spending our money and using our dollars to make policy changes. We're not doing that. So that's what we need to do. Looking at this past week, we saw this last final debate, and we got pretty much what we expected. We got distractions and lies from Trump. We got a little bit of substance from Biden. We got some areas, but even he didn't give us a whole lot. But we got something. So, you get what you got. You get what you pay for, and that's what we pay for. We paid for 3 years of Trump to continue to lie to us. Now we have to decide if we want to try to do something different with Biden, or if we're going to keep getting the lies, the deaths, the unemployment, and everything else that we're getting under this current administration. So one of the things that we heard mostly was this dismissiveness from Trump about the coronavirus. 42 out of 50 states right now are skyrocketing. Red states, as we call them, held and led by Republicans, are now at the highest. South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, all these states, Iowa, that were supposedly, only the blue states are happening. Yeah, everybody's happening now. And all these people are getting it and dying. Now, I don't feel sorry for them. I've told you this before. If you're going to sit there and say it's a hoax, it doesn't matter, who cares, we're turning the corner and all this other crap, then when your butt gets it, you need to get it. If you don't want to wear a mask, get it. And you know my saying, I hope your butt get it. Hope you get sick as hell. Because if you don't care about me, why the hell should I care about you? It makes no difference. All right. So we need to understand what that means for us. Does that mean we're going to put in another 4 years of that? Because if you haven't heard, yesterday, today is Monday. So yesterday, the chief of staff said, we're not going out there to try to, contain the virus. We're not trying to do anything with the virus. We're just going to deal with it. And Trump said in the debate, we're learning to live with it. And Biden aptly said, no, we're learning to die with it, because that's what we're doing. They've gotten this herd immunity thing that they want to do, where they're just going to let everyone get it. And if you die, you die. The strongest will survive. If you die, oh, well. If you don't die, well, cool, you're good. That's their philosophy. That's their policy. And that's what they've admitted to. And so for many of you who are Black watching this, and those of you who are older white watching this, and even young folks, you understand that even young people are dying. Yeah, you have a greater chance of not dying, but most of you are dying too, white and Black. It's just that Black folks are a quarter, 25% of the people who are dying are Black folks. So Black America, we can't sit here and play around with this. What's his name? Mitch McConnell says he doesn't want a bill. He doesn't want to try to save any more businesses. He doesn't care about the cities and states. He doesn't care about the schools and trying to get kids back to school. He doesn't want a bill. He said he's fine. Don't pass the bill. We're too busy worrying about Judge Barrett. We want her on the bench so that we can make sure that come election time or before election, we can throw out some of these ballots. And if we need to, we can go ahead and stop the counting just like they did in 2000. And that is what we are, because that piece of it right there really bothers me. 2000, the Supreme Court did the same thing. They stopped the counting and threw it out. Democrats should have been on their asses, making sure that every registered Democrat understood the power and the purse string of that Supreme Court and what it means to all of us in terms of this democracy. The laws are changed and implemented through the courts. Yeah, the legislature may make it, but the courts determine whether or not it's legal, whether it's constitution or whatever it is. That's why these 300 judges that Trump has put on the bench are so vitally important to your livelihoods over the next 30 to 40 years. 30 to 40 years, because they're a lifetime appointment. They're 30 years old, 40 years old. They're going to be there until you die. And everything they do is going to impact you, your children, and your grandchildren. We talked about this the last show. We've talked about it I try to talk about it on every show. The Supreme Court and all the district courts are important. The appellate courts are important. But we have negated and neglected telling our people about that. And that, for one reason, I have no clue. I understand why that's happening. The Republican parties all over this country have been fighting for the vote in Pennsylvania and Texas. I mean, you got drop boxes in Harris County, Houston, in the suburbs, and they're drilling it down throughout the state to one drop box. Georgia, voter suppression is everywhere. So we really need to pay attention. We really need to understand exactly what's going on and why it's important for us not only to vote in every darn election, but we got to participate in the process. 4 years ago, this test tube baby told Black America,
you're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
A whole hell of a lot. And if we haven't figured that out by now, go ahead and vote for him. If you Black and you don't know what the hell you have to lose, go ahead and vote for him. Because if you didn't lose anything in this first 4 years, wait till the next 4 when he has no accountability, doesn't have to worry about anything in terms of what's next. Because unless he and his buddies change the Constitution or do something with the Attorney General or something like that, he'll try to get in for another 4 years, or he'll just run shot over this next 4 years, and he won't do anything. So we know what we have to lose now. So the question is, are we tired of losing, or are we going to do like these 4 sisters in Atlanta, these 20-somethings in Atlanta who were interviewed this past weekend, who said, I'm not voting because I'm waiting for Joe Biden to apologize for the crime bill. I'm not voting because I'm waiting for Joe Biden to apologize for the crime bill. Now, I get it, but yet and still, I don't get it. Because if you're 20 something, your ass wasn't even alive when the crime bill was passed. So you're sitting here complaining and saying you're waiting for Joe Biden to apologize for something that you weren't even born when it passed, don't know the circumstances of why it passed, but yet you said nothing about waiting for Trump to apologize for telling 4 black women to go back where they came from, or for him telling the Proud Boys to stand by, or for him saying anything about the good people on both sides, or saying that our ancestral countries are S-hole countries. You didn't want him to apologize for that, but you want Joe Biden to apologize for a crime bill that state governments altered, changed to use to incarcerate more of us. And the 36 of the 42 Black Caucus members voted for, Black pastors lobbied for, city halls lobbied for, because crime was out of this world in the early 90s. And you're talking about, I think she said, my non-vote, or if I don't vote for Biden, that doesn't mean it's a vote for Trump. That's the ignorance that I'm talking about. Because see, when you don't vote for someone to make a change, then yes, you are giving the vote to the person to stay in office that's already there. So it's ignorant for you to say a non-vote for Biden is a vote for Trump, because it is. It is a vote for Trump. So laying it out for me tonight to help me deal with this and to deal with the realities of politics and helping us understand the priorities that we should have politically is my good friend. He's a professor at American University. He's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and author. Is Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. Also joining me for the first time ever, she is Misha Robinson. She is a brand strategist, a social entrepreneur, committed to generating innovative and impactful changes in organizations and communities. She's also the founder and CEO of I Am We Are, a nonprofit organization piloted in South Africa, dedicated to empowering youth with the fortitude, knowledge, and skills necessary to actively build the future they envision for themselves and their families. Also joining me is my good friend. He's been here before. He comes on every time I ask him, and I appreciate him dearly. Is my good brother, Brandon Andrews. He is a GOP consultant, but more importantly, he is a casting producer for Shark Tank. He's doing the minority businesses and helping minority business get on the Shark Tank and get funding throughout their journey to become bigger and better small businesses. And also joining us, and I believe she's here, she'll be joining us later on, is author, political strategist, and lobbyist, Dr. Maya Rockeymoore Cummings. I want to thank and welcome all of you guys to the show tonight. If you want to join the conversation, if you have a comment or a question, please give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143, or you can put your comments in the comment section of our Facebook and or our YouTube comment box. And we're on Facebook at Black Politics Today and YouTube at Black Politics Today. So let me start with you, Dr. O. We got, you teach these millennials, those 20-somethings I was talking about. Brandon, welcome to the show, my brother. Good to see you. You teach these guys and young ladies, you teach these folks, these millennials. How do you help them understand that the changing time and the need to research what they're complaining about or supporting? Because clearly those 20-somethings in Atlanta, not understanding that a non-vote for Biden is a vote for Trump, didn't get it, and wanting him to apologize for something they weren't even around for, right? Granted, it's in place, but they didn't even understand that he passed federal law, and it's for federal prisons, but the states use that to then incarcerate and change it to incarcerate more of us under state law. So how do you explain it and teach them?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it. Well, the first thing I do with them is I remind them that their grade depends on it. Oh, no, just kidding. What I tell them the first day of class is that I don't care what they think about anything, but I do care about how they think and how they're informed. And so we talk about this term called agnotology, which is the study of how doubt is produced. Think about the tobacco industry when they realized they couldn't do anything to tell people that smoking wasn't bad for them. They just put celebrities in their advertisements to have people doubting it. That's the era that we live in now with fake news and alternative facts and the like. And so I teach them about the importance of going beyond the headlines, about the importance of diversifying their news sources, and also the importance of studying history. I teach a class on global hip hop and resistance, and we watched the first 4 episodes of the hip hop evolution. And you know, these kids who think they know so much about hip hop, they're like, "Well, I didn't know this was part of the roots. I didn't know it came from this. I didn't." So once they get the opportunity to learn about the history, then their perspective starts to change. So with those 4 students that you talked about earlier, do they know that the Violence Against Women Act was part of the crime bill? Do they know that Joe Biden was against the mandatory minimum aspect of it? Do they know that if you are really against the crime bill, you should be against policies right now that are consequences of the crime bill, like the unemployment issues that we're having, like the residency issues that people are having, like the barriers to vote if you get convicted, for example. So it's like, if you're really going to be about that life, you got to have the whole picture. And so I work on teaching them to just see everything in its totality and go beyond the headlines.
Exactly. And even more so, if that's the case, then you should also be against Jeff Sessions saying that he wants to charge more and put more charges on them, as opposed to when Obama was in office, it was like, we're going to reduce the charging. We're not going to keep escalating charging, and we're going to try to reduce the terms and time you serve. But Sessions said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to charge him with everything we can charge him with, convict him with everything we can convict him of, and put more sentences and more time on them so that they're staying in prison longer anyway. I mean, right. This is what we are dealing with. And so I'm glad that you give them that insight. Misha, welcome to the broadcast, my sister.
Thank you,
I don't know if you're Gen X or a millennial, but explain to us the low-key perspective of millennials. Help me understand why millennials have this low-key perspective sometimes, because they're not always consistent in their vote. They vote sometimes, they don't vote other times. And then they pick and choose one particular issue to really vote on. Can you help us understand what it is, the reluctance to participate, and at least the consistency of voting or advocating for or against policies that they see as being impactful to them and their children in the future?
Yeah, so I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm gonna just speak on what I know a little bit about millennials, but and let me go back and just
take it from Gen X perspective. You know, give it to the millennials too.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I think what it goes back to at the end of the day, whether you're a millennial or a Gen Xer, but especially as people of color, is really feeling if you matter. And I think, you know, when you look at the social justice issues in this country, and, you know, just even as a Black woman, every day I'm told that I do not matter in this society, whether it's from the verdicts that come down to just how I'm treated in my neighborhoods on a daily basis. So I think when you look at like social cohesion models, the base of that pyramid before is about, you know, trust. So going back to what Dr. O just shared, it's about trust. It's about, you know, the social justice issue. And then all of that ladders up to like my sense of belonging in my community. And then from there, that ladders up to whether or not I participate. So I think, you know, voting, and to your point about engagement, is very important, but there's a lot of work that we just need to do culturally within our communities and as neighbors, you know, to really just build back that sense of trust within our society and that sense of belonging.
So Brandon, I think you're in that Gen Xer too, or millennial. I'm not sure where you are. I always tease you about your age, but, you know, because, you know, you one of them young bad brothers, you know, young millionaires and, you know, just doing things. So I always tease you about that. But talk to me about that, because right now you have Black men, as we talked about, I think in the last time I had you on, a number of Black men moving to the GOP. Even when the policies right now for the GOP don't seem to really benefit them socially, economically, or politically, but they seem to be moving over to that side of things. In some cases, my boy Kevin was hitting me up today saying that it's like double digits, almost maybe 20%. I complained about it in the last show about being 11%, but now they're talking about being 20%. Statistically, what is it that Black men are doing to go to this side? Because I think the last time you said it was about strength. They're seeing strength, but do they not take in consideration the racist tenets behind this strength that they see? Where is it that they move forward to say that this is where I'm going, given what we know?
Yeah. So one, thanks for having me on again, and great to connect with both of the other guests here. So I am a millennial, and I do think it's important for millennials to vote. It's important for us to exercise that right. That was one that was hard fought over many generations. But it's also important, as Dr. O said, to complicate some of these conversations. Whenever someone drills down to a single issue and to a politician taking a singular action, I always think it's important to unpack what that action is, what other politicians have been involved in that action. So are these folks asking members of the Congressional Black Caucus to apologize, just like they're asking Joe Biden to apologize before they would vote for, their local CBC member if they're in a CBC member's district? It's important to complicate that narrative, and ultimately everyone is going to learn and benefit from having those more difficult conversations and not letting people get by with just saying Joe Biden needs to apologize or I'm not going to vote for him. On the issue of men, I think it's like the other guest just said, you want to find a place for yourself in whatever political organization, community organization that you're a part of. And I think a lot of Black men are feeling like they don't have a place really in either party, that neither party is maybe speaking to them and their needs. And so when that happens, that I think men do gravitate to places of something that they may traditionally see as a position of strength. Now, there's all kinds of misogyny that's wrapped up in that needs to be unpacked. And there's all kinds of, I think, other issues, because to the point that you made, there are a lot of things that not just the GOP, but that Trump in particular have done from a policy perspective that are not going to benefit a lot of Black men. However, if the Democratic Party isn't speaking to Black men, if Black men don't feel like they have a place in the party in the same way that some other constituent groups do, then that's a problem. And I don't think it's okay for Democrats to look past the issue and say, well, we're talking about the issues. You're obviously something is amiss, because if it wasn't, then these gains that have been happening over the past few elections wouldn't be continuing here in 2020, especially with what we've seen and heard from the Trump administration over the past few years.
Exactly, Dr. O. Brandon makes a perfect point. Something that he and I have talked about on the show a number of times, and something that I've talked to my other guests about, is that we always hear about the Black women showing up, but we don't hear about the Black men showing up. And it seems that Brandon is exactly right, where we have not had, I think because of the crime bill, that there are so many Black men who have not drilled down, but who think about it and see it as like, oh my God, that's why Ray got locked up. That's why Pookie got locked up. That's why this got locked up. But they didn't understand it being a federal bill. And most of the crimes that they're going to prison for the long haul are state crimes. Right. And they're state violations that the state legislatures and jurisdictions basically hijacked the crime bill and then used it for their benefit to put in, to do the 3 strikes laws across the country, that virtually, I mean, as I've said on the show 100 times, started in California. It started during our time because of Polly Klaas and the guy who started America's Most Wanted, Walsh. I can't think of it, John Walsh. His son being killed, and that's where it started. And so that's where the people started doing the 3 strikes law, and we were the first state to do it. And it's for violent offenders. But then drug users got caught up in that because they had a felony. People who were low grade, non-violent offenders got caught up in that. And because they had other felonies, they got caught up in the 25 years to life. But talk to us about that in terms of what Brandon was talking about and how we deal with addressing Black men in the Democratic Party and how we address the issues, because we keep saying, we're going to do good for small businesses. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But it just doesn't seem to resonate. But Black women, they're locked in.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is what you spoke about a little bit earlier, is the level of political sophistication. People don't know about the good portions that were in the crime bill, like I said, Violence Against Women's Act and the like, or how Newt Gingrich came in with his contract on America and got rid of so many of the provisions and things like the drug courts that were some of those things that were kept in place when it came to benefiting white people, but not us. And so we have to do a better job of reaching so many of our Black men where they are, because they're not going to be turning on CNN or Fox News and the like. And this is one of the challenges as somebody who's into music, someone who's a rapper and I got an album coming up that speaks about, social justice issues. This is where we need more of our entertainers to speak up, not like Ice Cube and 50 Cent, right? But, to get out there and use their platforms. At the very least, if they're not going to make songs, use their outreach, because they also have become a little bit more politicized. People like Jeezy, and Snoop met with the Congressional Black Caucus about an hour before, met with Biden's campaign about an hour before they met with Ice Cube, to talk about some of these issues. They got to do a better job. And the DNC also has to do a better job of putting these guys as faces of their campaigns. LeBron James and guys like that. Yeah. But, he's out there, but people don't resonate with him as well as they may some of the other rappers and the like, to really get them on a strong platform, because unfortunately, those are the guys that they're going to listen to, as opposed to somebody like, myself, who's out there doing the work. So many of them are susceptible to influencers, and we have to do a better job of getting our influencers to help influence them. It shouldn't be that way. I hate the fact that we have to depend so much on our entertainers for these things, but this is where we are now. And hopefully after this, we can learn better how to do it better next time around.
And I was going to go there with you, because one of the things was the whole idea of the drug courts, because that was something that was in the crime bill that, like you said, got taken out, because the idea wasn't that folks doing drugs were supposed to go to jail. They're supposed to go to rehab.
That's right.
And they eliminated everything in the prison system for rehab and just went to a straight punishment, where it's like, no, we're just going to incarcerate, punish, and then we're going to privatize and build up, because we know this is a moneymaker, because it's costing states all this money. Let's privatize it and give it to them and let them take over. We have, I think, 80 prisons in California.
Yeah.
It was 50 before I left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the last, 15, 20 years, 30 new prisons have been built.
And how many universities and how many schools, right?
To the tune of $1 billion a year and cost and revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Misha, you were when we were talking earlier, you were talking about not really worrying about. I think you put it as like not really worrying about who would win, but more so about kind of trying to control yourself and how you deal with life and what you do. Do you think that having that these millennials that I was talking about, the young ladies and others, do you think that understanding the process, understanding who's elected and how their election can impact them socially, economically, and politically, especially if we're talking about healthcare or education or housing, would make a difference to them?
Oh, a huge difference. I mean, I echo what Dr. O said. I've had the opportunity through my own travels and also through work to really engage with just everyday people and to challenge myself to, even talk to people with political persuasions and thoughts that are different than my own. And I think to your to everything Dr. O said about political sophistication, the average person, the average American, I don't care if they're millennial, a Gen X, or a boomer, does not have that political sophistication to understand the stats and facts and the things that you've talked about and sort of that connective tissue. And I think they go off of sound bites, and we're so much in our bubbles nowadays. And so you're just going off of what other people are telling you and what your neighbors say, and you may not be checking the facts. And I think with that also said, people are just going off of their lived realities. And so, in some regards, I felt this way under Obama and this was going on. And then, now Trump is going here and my lived reality isn't that much different. So for me, I may not understand, or for that millennial, they may not understand sort of the power of the vote. And we really do need to do some education. And I think, again, echoing what Dr. O said, and meet people at their level. So whether that is talking to an entertainer or a rapper, I think we do need to do some very grassroots sort of advocacy, education, and awareness on sort of why voting is important and why these issues matter and why it's also important to vote, not just in every 4 years, but every 2 years.
Absolutely. Brandon.
Yeah, and there's some tough questions there that I think neither party is doing a good job of answering. So, for example, 50 comes out and says, I don't like paying taxes. Because of that, I may support Republicans, or I may support Trump. The issue of taxes, you have billionaires like Mark Cuban, who is progressive. He, leans left politically, saying one of the most patriotic things you can do is get really rich and pay a lot of taxes. But I think for a lot of Black men in particular, for a lot of people of color, when we think taxes, folks are thinking tax refund. Like, we like taxes because we're getting something back. Whereas when you start making a little money and start owing taxes, the concept of having to pay the government that is systemically racist, the government that has put our people in these binds for generations, the government that has a justice system that is unfair, whether you've been in it or whether you know someone that's been in it, the thought of having to take my hard-earned money and not get something back from this government, but having to pay the government, I think strikes a lot of people as incorrect. And so what answer does the Democratic Party have, or Republican Party for that matter? But we're talking about, I think, voting for Biden here. What answer does the Democratic Party provide to that question? Are they willing to engage in those tough conversations? Who is that mouthpiece going to be to hit back and say whatever the party message is going to be on that? I know, Mike Blake is there at the DNC, and he, I think, tries to do some of that, but I haven't seen from a mouthpiece perspective someone actually make an argument that's coherent, and I think that would sync with the lived experience of a lot of Black and brown people when it comes to taxes. Like, that's a tough issue, but it's not something that's being talked about.
But can I just jump in and say one thing? I think part of the issue, though, is the things that we're talking about are not the issues that the everyday person is really caring about. Like, I live in DC, and the things like taxes, yes, they're important for me because I'm at a certain economic bracket, but I'm also concerned about my safety walking out my door. I'm concerned about, I look and see the despair in people's faces that are sitting on the corners every day and strung out or just homeless or trying to find jobs and trying to survive. And I mean, I've seen that in the streets of DC. I've seen that when I've been traveling in Alabama to New Orleans. And I think we miss, even when we're in our own bubble of sort of, educated, affluent Black people, of what the everyday, the average American's lived reality isn't this. And taxes, immigration, those things are big issues that I think the parties are using to pull us apart. But the everyday person, those aren't the things that they're really concerned about. They're trying to feed their children. They're trying to make sure that their children will have a better lives than them. Back to that basic American dream. And I think that in some regards is sort of, when you ask the question of why don't I vote, or, why do I think my vote doesn't matter? It's because you're not talking to me and sort of the challenges that I'm experiencing just trying to live and survive right now in this country.
I think that's both are true. And on the tax side of things, like you said, Cuban, Buffett, and the like on the progressive side are like, yeah, I'm making this money. I'm supposed to pay my taxes. I'm supposed to do this because that's what we do to make this engine run and make this work. But to your point, Brandon, if you are African American, you making money and you look at it as a racist system, wouldn't and shouldn't it be that through your participation and through your voting, whether you're paying taxes or not, you change that system? Because right now, when we look at this, in the next 20 years, we're going to be a majority of this country. But if we don't start changing the policies now to this 20 years, we're still going to be at the bottom of the barrel talking about we getting this and we getting that. We're still going to get the crumbs from the table rather than actually having the full entree in the meal, where we're kicking the crumbs to somebody else. So I get it from that perspective, and there needs to be a definitive conversation about that so that we can understand exactly how taxes work and how they're supposed to work for our benefit and where they are. But how do we engage that so that those Black entrepreneurs like yourself, like Dr. O, like Misha and myself, understand that, okay, yeah, we may not like paying taxes, but it's a part of our quote unquote, our duty or our patriotic duty, so that we can build up our community, so we can build up our nation, our country, so we can have a strong defense, so we can have all these things that are there that we need. How do we get that message across? Brandon.
Yeah, I don't think that message works the same way for most people. For people that are looking for a tax return every year to get something back, and people that are fans of 50 Cent and or other entertainers who may feel similarly, I think saying something to them, it sounds like I want to keep as much money as possible that I make. And so what is the answer to that from a government perspective, especially if, as Misha has said, maybe my lived experience hasn't changed a lot from Obama to Trump, and now I may not expect it to change a lot in a potential Biden administration either. So I think that's the question that both political parties need to answer, but especially the Democratic Party, given the urgency around voting and what I believe would be a terrible mistake if we, of course, reelect Donald Trump. So I think we have to be able to have that conversation. Things cost money. We understand that it is a patriotic duty. We understand that the taxes go to building roads and schools and all those kinds of things. But if my lived experience isn't changing, it's difficult to make a compelling case there, I think, for everyday folks that are looking for that return and maybe want to make more money, but certainly aren't looking towards the day that they are paying more taxes because they want to keep as much as they can.
Gotcha. Brandon, go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. Brandon, go ahead and play. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 516-590. Brandon. I said Brian. Brian, go ahead and play that. Give us a call at 516-590-0143. Yeah. I'm
about to hit my playlist, man.
516-590-0143. Give us a call, share your comment, share your question, and we'll be right back. Go ahead, Brian.
Is this how you see us? Because that's not who we are. In reality, we are volunteers. We are entrepreneurs and creatives. We are parents. We're people who feel, who face struggles, who overcome. We're people who use our influence to change our communities. We are what's trending. So this coming season, let's let them know what else we do.
So certainly, if you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143. That's our ad that we put out there on Instagram, on Facebook, and YouTube to basically help and get millennials involved, get them empowered, and help them get out there and vote. We didn't see any ads out there for them, so we created one to put one out there. And certainly, if you're out there, please take it, forward it, use it, put it on your Instagram, put it out there, track it, and let it go out there and educate, empower those. And of course, certainly join us on the Black Reset. Put that up for me, Brian, and text TBR20, your first, your last, and your email, TBR20, first name, last name, your email at 59769. Put a space in between each one so that we can make sure we get that, and join us so we can get started on creating an agenda and things that we can talk about at every level of government between now and the first of the year when that person, whomever it is sworn in. Please, Jesus, don't let it be this too, baby. Okay, please. Okay. Dr. O, I don't even know why I'm even going to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway, and I'm going to follow up with another one based on your answer. What's Donald Trump's best scenario for another 4 years?
You're talking about in terms of states to win, or what do you mean, like how can he win next week? Is that what you're asking, or
message? What can be said or done, or why would we say or do to basically give him another 4 years?
So the way I'm reading your question is, what can he basically do to create a scenario for the next 4 years for the Black community? Like, what can he say, basically, right? Well, I mean, to be quite honestly, politically, he just has to keep hammering home the message of what a Biden agenda is going to do for Black people. For some people, this thought about the crime bill and incarcerating Black men, it does resonate with some people. And then there are people who've come at Kamala for her record in California, and they're like, you put these two guys together, look what they've already done, look what they will do. And, to be quite honest, he's not really interested in more voter turnout. He's interested in more people staying home. Right. So he can continue to push that message and just get some brothers and maybe some sisters to be like, you know what, he's right, I'm just not going to mess with it. He said this in 2016 when people didn't show up. It was like a vote for him anyway. So it was like the same difference. So and even right now he's in Pennsylvania talking about voter fraud and mass, corruption, and that they're stealing the election. If he just keeps hammering down his message of negativity, his goal is to suppress turnout, and that's what's going to help him. And some people are going to honestly believe that, given what quote unquote Biden has already done, not the other 100 senators who voted for it as well, and not the Republicans who took away things like drug courts and the like, as long as what Biden has already done, because Trump has painted a great picture of Biden having, what did he say? He hasn't done anything in the 47 years he's been in political office, as if he was president the whole time. That message does stick, and it's enough to get people to stay home, and Trump to feel like, well, if they stay home, I got a shot.
Right. And on that, you talk about the speaking that and putting that out there. Kamala herself, even in the reforms that she put in place in California, the idea was that, well, she was the prosecutor, so she prosecuted these Black men, and they went to jail as the attorney general or as the district attorney. But even the reforms that she put in about, getting rid of cash bail and things of that nature, so that they can actually get bailed out because they're held in county jail or in state prison because they couldn't bail out. They had to pay cash, and they didn't have the cash, and they have houses to be put up. So even with that message hasn't been getting out there, as you said, and it hasn't really been resonating to help people understand what the bills have done and what it means. Like you said, the other people who are involved in it. Yeah, he put the legislation together, but everyone else supported it and voted on it. But you,
and I have it,
Brandon.
I haven't heard on that, cash bail issue and some ways to reform the justice system. Prop 25 is up in California, and I haven't seen or really heard anything significant from Kamala in support of Prop 25 or in support of replacing the cash bail system there. So I think there's an opportunity for her to, and the campaign more generally, to connect with this progressive movement to undo some of these systemic issues. But in my opinion, I've seen some reticence there from the campaign, just because I haven't seen a full-throated support. I mean, that's happening in her state, and she has to have an opinion about it. But it's just not something that she's I think decided to prioritize.
And I think too, we have to get away from the way we do campaigns. We have to get away from how we singular focus on the campaign, and then we just, what's the word I want to use? We sort of sprinkle dust over here, sprinkle dust over there, sprinkle here and sprinkle there. Because she passed the bill in Congress, in the Senate. She passed the federal bill to get rid of cash bail. But like you said, in her home state, she hasn't hey, yes, I did this. Here's the federal bill I put together. Yes, I'm supporting the state bill. I think one time I've heard her say, yes, I'm supporting it, but there's no continued message out there that will resonate with Black men to understand where it is. Misha, understanding this and looking at it, because, a Black woman looking at your Black men and trying to understand where they're going and putting them on that pedestal of, them being the man that they are and need to be and things of that nature. What resonates with you as a Black woman from a message perspective, and what is it that you need to hear in a political tunnel that allows you to say, you know what, that's inspiring or that's engaging? Because one of the biggest things that we're hearing right now is that Black folks aren't motivated. Now, me personally, I don't feel there's anything that I need to do to motivate your ass to vote for your future, but for some reason, there's this thing where we need to motivate you to get you to go to the polls. The mere fact that your ass is unemployed, your health care is on the line, the Supreme Court is about to send you back home, all these things should be enough to motivate you. But yet me as a candidate, I got to say something to you to do that. I'm going to throw this in there too. So I don't know if you guys watch Black Love, but every now and then I turn on Black Love. And every now and then you see the husband and the wife sitting there on Black Love, and they're talking about, hey, what do you need to do here? What do you need to do there? How we stay together and how we make love and keep it going and going strong. So here's the question. This past week, they were talking about, hey, it's not my job as your husband to make you happy. You need to make yourself happy. Mm-hmm. That's your job as my wife to make me happy. I need to make myself happy. Because if I'm happy and you're happy, now we can grow together and we can build up what we're trying to do. We can be that power couple. We can do this. We can do that. But if you sitting around bitch crying, complaining because you're not happy and you looking for me to make you happy, and I'm sitting here talking about woman, I'm going to step out because you ain't making me happy. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. Nowhere does it say I'm supposed to make you happy. But everywhere you think that's what my job is. No, my job is to cover you, protect you, lead you, and support you and carry you through everything that you have to deal with and cover you and protect you. That's what the Bible told me. Now, everything else comes with it. So with that understanding of how I put Black Love in there, what is it that we need to do to motivate you as a woman that says, go out there and vote, support or do this so you can help your Black men or teach your Black men or impact or empower your Black men to understand they need to get off this other wagon and get somewhere else. But like Brandon says, they need to have some check marks. They need to do something with that.
Wow, that was a loaded question. I mean, honestly, I'm in the same place as you. So I'm standing here and going to answer this question as Misha Robinson. And I don't know who's, there are other women that are behind me and connected to me, but I know my camp and the people that I talk to, we showing up and we're voting because it is, there are people that die for us to have a vote, and it's our obligation and our civic duty to be able to vote. So I think regardless of the messaging, et cetera, I'm not voting voting because I, necessarily love the candidates that are there. I'm voting because, to your point, I know it's connected to my future. And so to me, I think back to what you said earlier, it's about the education. We just need to start with the education of why it really matters and how it's connected to our everyday lived experiences, just to connect back with that. And then I think that's the messaging that works. But I think even listening to how you said that, and even in my own reality, there's nothing in my voting decision actually connects me to sort of how that connects with me as a Black woman, me as sort of being part of the Black family, and also connecting to the Black men. So I'd actually love to hear from the men what that is, because I think I actually haven't connected it, and maybe even for me, as somebody who's not sort of a political wonk, I don't connect the messaging that I hear right now with sort of, what my experience is in the Black community and as a Black family member. And I've read through even what, the Biden campaign has out there as the Black agenda, but I still really, in some regards, struggle to understand how that is going to, show up at my dinner table.
Go ahead, Dr. O. Help Misha, understand it, and in part, give us the reality of where it's going to lead us. How does that agenda lead us to where we're going to go, or where they're trying to take us to?
Well, I think that, and both, Brandon and Misha brought up in basically different ways, have said the same thing, that Democrats are not that great with the soundbite, right? That
they really aren't.
that thing that you can just sit at the table and be like, oh, they're going to do that. And right. Trump proudly says, I am the same person I am since I was 8 years old. So that means he has an 8-year-old vocabulary, or my daughter's vocabulary was much better at 8, but meaning he speaks in simple ways that get people thinking. And so what Democrats have to be doing is saying, okay, kitchen table issues, look at your school system. We're going to, look at the resources that are coming into your schools. That's going to change. Look at what's happening with policing in your community. Oh, because you know what? That was also part of the crime bill, was consent decrees. Right. And, building those relationships with the community, letting people know that's going to come back. Letting people know that, for example, that when they look at issues relating to healthcare and the challenges they have with healthcare that prevent them from doing everything else, like getting having gainful employment, like being able to have their kid be able to study in classrooms because they don't have to worry about insurance because they have a toothache and they can't focus. Like those simple bread and butter issues. And racism is also a bread and butter issue for Black people as well. It's also a kitchen table issue. And so people need to point out, look at every conversation that has happened about the killings in places like Kenosha, or things that have happened with all of the Black Lives Matter issues, and show how it's going to be a direct change in their community, which leads to the other problem Democrats have. They don't do a great job of endorsing local candidates. They don't have local partnerships with candidates. All of the, Misha said, she's not a policy wonk. I'm not, maybe I'm a policy wonk, I guess. And I ran for city council. Y'all blinked. That's why it was over before y'all. That's why y'all missed it. And Kelly, all of these politicians, and you've known them longer than us. It's like, I don't recall ever seeing these candidates reach down and say, Trayon White or Robert White or whoever is my guy, and they're going to make this happen. That's another problem. So that's in addition, we talked about the celebrities earlier. They don't connect to the local politics. And that's why when Misha talks about, I'm not seeing it at the table, those are also the guys who can help bring the message home. And they got to do a better job of that too.
That right there is for the Black reset. That right there is the issue for the Black reset. So put it down. We're gonna write it down, because you're absolutely right. It pisses me off that the party does what they do, and they always do it on a national level. But even then, they will not put the money or resources behind, like a Texas or Arizona or something like that, because it's a red state. Republicans will run in every dang on state. They don't care, because what they're doing is they're laying groundwork. They're planting seeds, and they're just doing seeds. Republicans strategize for 20 years. Democrats strategize for 2 years. It pisses me the hell off. They stupid as hell, and they do it every damn year. That's what I'm talking about right now. 2000, we understood how important the Supreme Court was. When have you ever heard the Democrats talk about the Supreme Court? Since 2000. They never talk about it. Then they want to bitch, crap, and complain about it when they lose their ass in 2016 and 2018 and 2012 and 2010 and everything else. And now they want to fight and do everything else. And they have no power, no capability of stopping anything.
That's right.
So, Brandon, I mean, speaking of which, the Senate just confirmed Barrett, right? And now you got that 6-3 majority, right? Which could have been a 6-3 Democratic majority had Democrats who were stuck on stupid because they were like, I don't like Hillary, but you were supporting Obama, you supported his nominee. You wanted his nominee to get in. But then you turn your back on the party because you thought Bernie didn't get it right. Bernie was a darn independent. He wasn't even a Democrat. So he was hijacking the Democrats the same way Trump, who was a Democrat, hijacked the Republicans. So you pissed off, you're going to stay home. But as soon as his ass is inaugurated, 60,000 MFs out in the street protesting. What the hell are you protesting for now when if 60,000 of you had voted on election day, he wouldn't have got in? True. So now you got Barrett on the bench now. Talk to me about this because you're looking at it from two perspectives, and I'm looking at it from two perspectives here. So you got the party that pushed this through. Now you got Trump and McConnell. If these jokers get another 4 years with this Supreme Court woman on the bench, and we already gotten the Pennsylvania bringing back the lawsuit that they just lost for counting ballots after Election Day. You got Georgia going to be bringing their case. Florida will bring their case. Wisconsin will bring their case. Michigan will bring their case. Minnesota will bring their case. All Texas will bring their case. All these folks, and Texas has a case coming up also on healthcare. Talk to me about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the immediate impact of this confirmation. California v. Texas is scheduled for November 10th, and that's the Trump administration suing to basically strike completely the Affordable Care Act. So get rid of Obamacare, which is something that Republicans have been trying to do since the law was passed without actually having a viable replacement for it. I think Democrat, Republican, independent, whoever you are, once that case begins on November 10th, we're going to feel the immediate impact of the decision, and there's unfortunately not really anything Democrats can do in terms of influencing that decision or changing kind of the course of action that things are on. If the justices actually vote based on where they fall on the ideological spectrum, so if it falls 6-3, then you could see that mandate struck down, and you could see healthcare erased for millions of people. And the worst part about it is Republicans absolutely do not have a replacement. There is no plan in waiting in the wings to be implemented. There is no intellectual heft on the Republican side when it comes to healthcare, at least not intellectual heft that's been translated into a practical plan that can actually get millions of people covered, protect pre-existing conditions, et cetera, no matter what Donald Trump says. And so we're going to see that impact immediately. I do think because Republicans don't have a plan, and I have no faith in their ability to have a plan moving forward, it can be a winning political issue if you look at having Democrats potentially having control of Congress and having a mandate to be able to get some things passed. It can certainly give Democrats that mandate to pass whatever the next phase of healthcare coverage in the United States would be. And it could be a winning political issue for some down ballot pieces or elections that come up in 2021. But I think it's going to be felt immediately. It's already being felt because curbside voting was struck down in the state of Alabama just about a week and a half ago, which is having an immediate impact on the election with the courts makeup being what it is today without the extra conservative member. And so you can expect even more things along that ideological path as we move forward. And there's going to be plenty of protests, et cetera, but there's not a whole lot that the protests are going to be able to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm gonna come to you, Dr. O, because for this particular, because given the political wonkiness that you do have, what Brandon just said about the immediate impact and the mere fact that the GOP has had 10 years to deal with this healthcare issue and not done a damn thing, nothing. And they keep talking about it's coming in 2 weeks. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm going to sign an executive order. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. But there's a reality to this in that after this election, I mean, this 6-3, after this vote, this 6-3, Republicans have always been saying they don't want judges legislating from the bench.
Mm-hmm.
They want strict constitutionalists who follow the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Yet that's exactly what they have been doing and are going to try to do and continue to do at every single level, because they are very clear in their messaging. We want pro-life judges and we want to strike down Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
We want judges who are going to strike down Obamacare.
Yep.
We want judges who are going to strip this voting rights because we don't feel we need it. Mm-hmm. We want judges who are going to, make sure that everyone can keep their guns, but we don't want to have any, bans or ability to stop getting guns. We want judges. So they have been and continue to legislate. And yet, back to that messaging, Democrats have never called them out on it, have never shown how they're really doing it. I really liked, can't think of his name right now. Brandon, you can help me out. The Democrat, the next leader, he's behind Dick Durbin on the Senate, who laid out the funding of the GOP and the Senate of all the judgeships, and he talked about the Heritage Foundation and everybody going. I can't think of his name right now. Simmons, Senator Simmons. I'm going to look it up, but Dr. O, address that issue of the fact that one, they're legislating from the bench, but two, because of this 6-3, how rapidly and vital that's going to be to especially us in every aspect, especially in healthcare, housing, jobs, and the like. And then I'm going to come to you, Misha.
It's sad, and your point about how we got so caught up in personalities that Democrats didn't pay attention to the courts is so spot on. And I mean, we got to think about it. If Scalia didn't die, Donald Trump probably wouldn't even have been elected, because popularity grew for him to get a conservative justice on. And that was part of, and then the whole FBI thing with Comey, put him on. I mean, the guy got 3 Supreme Court picks. 3, right? And the fact of the matter is power is more important than principle. And when Democrats could finally realize that, they would develop the ability to fight back. And the fact of the matter is, Coney is in her 40s. I believe Kavanaugh's in his 40s as well. So our children and grandchildren are going to be fighting decisions that they're going to be making. And so when people say they don't know what matters, we have to understand that women's right to choose, like you said, housing, voting rights is not going to come back under this court. We've seen what happened in just 7 years since it's been gutted. And so what we need to be focusing on is making sure that we understand each of those points, and we need to work around building our communities to be influencers, building our financial our capacity, building our political influence capacity, so we can start forcing these companies so that whatever the Supreme Court says, if our level of influence is so large, these changes are not going to really affect us. But right now, we're going by the whims of whatever the courts do, because we're not, as Misha was saying, feeling like we're connected to all that stuff that's going on up there or inside the Beltway and the like. But everything that we know in this country is fundamentally at risk right now, from healthcare to women's right to choose to voting to housing. And if we don't start getting our act together now, because the only way we're really going to be able to challenge this stuff is by putting the pressure on our legislators, right? But even with that, it's amazing how Republicans have managed to have these, minority rule but still control stuff because they blocked so much stuff under Obama, the way they work the gerrymandering so that they can, they got less votes in the last election when Senate was up, but they still maintain a majority. It's masterful the way they do it. And Democrats got to catch up before it's too late. So our only real influence is we don't have the courts is to really work hard at becoming more sophisticated and influencing the politicians from local to national level.
And that was the thing under Obama, Misha, is that Democrats, especially us, did not vote in midterm elections. So we end up losing state legislatures. Mm-hmm. And then in 2010, we lose the state legislatures. I think 38 states went red. Wow. And every one of those states, they then gerrymandered the state so that more Republicans got, because that was the last census, more Republicans were elected. And they put us in those small districts. And then all those states, it didn't matter, North Carolina, Texas, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, with all these states now have like super majority Republican state legislatures that it doesn't matter how much Democrats vote, they still maintain their popularity because they have carved them out so that they always have a majority of Republicans in those districts. And as to your point, being able to hit those kitchen tables, November 4th, a Glenn Meek scenario, okay? And November 4th, Trump is still there. Oof. How do we move forward and being sure that we are advocating and doing what Dr. O says and getting us pushed into and understanding how we need to address these issues? What is it that you do November 4th? What is it that you do and how do you move forward?
So let me just be quite transparent. I've been detoxing from like people and also social media. And as I said earlier, not a political wonk, not somebody who is deeply involved in following politics, but making sure that as a citizen, I'm aware of what's going on. But just candidly being in this conversation has just like hit me. Like I'm like physically saddened right now and just feeling even like the news that you just shared, like my heart, like, we're talking about, both candidates profess this is a battle for, or an election that's about the soul of America. And I'm feeling that right now. And so I guess that's what I go to. And I think, and I'm so glad that, we're shifting now to what happens after the election, because the election is a day that does have a huge impact. But I really, and my work is a lot about just people, whether it's the work that I do with the kids or the work that I do through marketing and other strategy work. I care about the people and what's going on with them and what their experiences are. And so I just think that if we really, whether I'm a Black person, a white person, an Asian person in this country, if we really want to see real change, it starts with us as individuals. That change starts with us inside in order to change our outside. And I think a lot of that is we've allowed, in some regards, our politicians to utilize divisive, political campaigning and techniques to pull us apart. And so now it is about, and I loved how beautiful, it's easy it was for you to lay out what the Republican, agenda is. And to your point in messaging, I can't do that for the Democratic agenda. But at the end of the day, these issues now of pro-choice and pro-life and, Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. These are the issues that define whether or not I say hi to my neighbor, whether or not I answer my brother's phone call. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to start, no matter what we believe, to just start getting to the point where we have civility and we're respecting people's dignity and humanity as everyday citizens in this country. Because I think when we get down to the foundational core, if you ask me what I care about, and to what I said earlier, like my kids and whether or not I can feed my family. And if we can start connecting across and with each other, whether I live in an urban area or rural area, whether I'm Black or white, et cetera, and just we come back and connect as people, then we can get to the point where we can just have civil conversation about these other bigger issues that matter. And I think part of the thing that I just go to and what we're just, I guess my soul aches is just that the fighting, and that's the thing. I think Trump, if nothing else, he fuels and he grows off of the divisiveness. And I don't think as a country we can sustain any more of those divisive political techniques. And so that's the thing, if nothing else, that I'm looking forward to with a Biden administration, is that he is focused on uniting and bringing the country together. So I think for me, I just go back to like just every day, our lived experiences, and what are we doing, and how are we connecting, and how are we relating, and how are we respecting each other.
I want to welcome now Dr. Maya Rockeymoore Cummings to the show. And thank you, Maya. I appreciate you joining us tonight. And finishing all the stuff that you had to do and still jumping on the Zoom for us and joining us. So I'm going to hit you because you're here now. So I'm going to hit you right with it. Looking at what Misha was just talking about, and Joe Biden talking about putting policies together and putting them in place to address our income inequality, our housing for African Americans, and things like that. Do you see and do you think that Kamala as the VP will be able to hold and keep those promises and hold him accountable so that Black America can see that, you know, this time around policies are going to change and we're actually going to be able to benefit from what's going out, what has been promised, and what they're saying they're going to do for us?
So yes, I do think it's incumbent upon not just Kamala, but all of us to actually hold Joe Biden accountable. You know, we brought Biden to this dance. Right. He would not have been here without us. And we need to consistently and continuously remind him of that if he actually takes office next year. And so with that, you know, we're going to need, I mean, all of these things, because we have regressed so badly in the last 4 years. We need a justice agenda that's real with tangible results and impact. And I think that actually has to be at the top, because, you know, people are still out in the streets protesting these murders happening around the country. We need a democracy agenda, because if anything, Donald Trump has shown us that our democracy is fragile, that we don't have some basic laws and constitutional guarantees in place, so even processes in terms of what to do if you have a criminal in the White House. I mean, we have to have more than just the Justice Department policy on the books telling us what to do in that situation. We need actual laws. Right. So there's just a lot that we need now. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that right there, Maya, is key, because the mere fact that come November 4th, if he doesn't like the results, the state legislatures, because they adjoin the electors, can say, oh, you know what, we're going to throw these out and we're going to appoint our own new electors, and we're going to say that this is what the community, the people wanted in our state. It's not what they actually voted, but they want Donald Trump, and they can actually throw those out and actually put these electors in. And because of the way our Constitution is, it's by congressional district. Even though Democrats have the majority, they still need to win 4 more congressional districts to be able to say, no, you can't do that. But so everyday Americans don't know that.
So Republicans have gamed it out to that level of detail.
Exactly.
And the Democrats are just catching up to figure out, you know, how to play the game book should this scenario actually unfold in that way. It's going to take, it's going to take people on the streets to hold the governors and the state legislatures' feet to the fire, to be reflective of the sentiment of the majority of their population. It's going to be important for Americans everywhere, in red states and blue states, to show that it is absolutely not okay for somebody who doesn't like the results of the election to, basically try to game the system in a way by hook or by crook, and I emphasize crook, that gets them to their end result. And speaking of crook, I think Amy Cohen Barnett, is that her name? Barrett, yeah, is might be being confirmed as we're talking. And the reason why she is such a concern is that they wanted desperately to get somebody on that Supreme Court, just in case this goes all the way to the Supreme Court like it did in 2000.
And under normal circumstances, Brandon, she would have never even made it to a hearing because of her views, even because of her writing for the ACA. She would have never, if we were under the old rules of 60, she would have never even reached the idea of even being considered. But yet, because of where we are and because of the 51 majority and them pushing her through right away, you literally have, I mean, like, as we said earlier, legislation, legislative judges, getting ready to do what the legislature is supposed to do. And they're doing it because they have not been able to pass any of the laws that they wanted in Congress. Even when they had the majority, they were not able to pass these laws.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's going to be a lot of conversation, no matter who wins, about the direction of our country and our institutions and how those institutions work. So should we have 9 justices, or should that number be different? It hasn't been changed in a long time, but there's nothing in the Constitution that mandates that that it's only 9. Should we have an electoral college, given the issues with the popular vote? And also, should we have the filibuster in the Senate? All of these conversations are going to happen, and whoever's president, especially I think if we have a Biden-Harris administration, there's going to be a lot of pressure to make some of those changes. I think Harry Reid started down that path with starting to make some changes in the Senate in terms of filibuster and the rights of the minority years ago. And once you start down that path, it's kind of difficult to stop and turn around, if not, and basically, I think impossible unless something really extraordinary happens to get rights of the minority added back in terms of the number of votes that are required to have a nomination move forward. There's a lot of tough questions there. But you're absolutely correct. This justice is too off center in terms of the ideological spectrum to have been able to move forward under a normal process in a normal year with the original Senate rules. She's there now and she's moving forward. And as aforementioned, California v. Texas is coming up November 10th. And I think we're going to see the immediate impact of her her confirmation on the bench, which will affect healthcare for millions of people. But it does create the opportunity to use that legislative branch. It does create the opportunity for Democrats to take that mandate and say, we have to, whether it's local level, state level, federal level, pass laws and get people elected that are going to pass laws that are going to protect folks, ensure that people are taken care of, because we can't count on the courts to do that because of the imbalance that's there. But I'm really interested to see what happens in terms of those conversations about our institutions, the filibuster, the electoral college, the number of justices, et cetera, because things have come to a head, and it's not something that the Biden-Harris administration, if they're elected, are going to be able to ignore.
And Maya, let me come back to you and get you caught up here, because one of the things that Brandon said is extremely correct. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143. Brian, we're going to go to that right after this question. The idea is if Biden wins and they also get the Senate, should they do what Obama didn't do, and that is to hell with compromise, get everything we can through in this first 2 years, change the Supreme Court, put into law Roe v. Wade, put into law another health care, put into law immigration, ram it through, get everything we can through, and play offense rather than always playing defense and being worried about the midterms, but put in, because a lot of Democrats left the Democrats in 2010 because they didn't push hard enough or play the offense that I think they should have played. I think they backpedal and was like, oh no, and there's no message. But should they play hardball and ram everything through just the way Republicans do, and with the change in demographics, rely on Democrats in these states because of the change in demographics to hold them and keep them in the Senate?
That's right.
So the answer is yes. and because we've been engaged in a asymmetrical warfare for, I mean, more than a decade now, actually more than 2 decades, where Republicans have been willing to play hardball because they know that they have a minority opinion in a country that's increasingly not reflective of their ideology nor their demographics. And so what they have been willing to do is by hook or by crook, and again, I emphasize the word crook, they have been focused on voter suppression. They have been focused on finding every tactic where Republicans have been willing to marginalize the voice and the power of Democrats, specifically Black and brown people and low-income people.
Right.
And so, yes, I mean, the Democrats have to go on the offensive for a change. This is a critical moment in the history of in the future of the country, and they must retake the advantage and do everything that they can to put this country right. Otherwise, what we're looking at is an apartheid South Africa future, and I'm putting that kindly, where we have justices that are highly conservative, ruling over a nation that doesn't think anything like them and doesn't look anything like them, where we have a minority party that's, frankly, I personally believe needs to be decertified after these last 4 years, but that's another argument. But where we have a minority party seeking to impose their unpopular views on a nation that doesn't want it. And that is setting up, and you add the racial dynamic to that, and you have a powder keg.
And Dr. O, taking that and really looking at how the Democrats really need, I mean, if they're going to change the courts, which I think they probably should do, if they do that, not do it like Lincoln and everybody said, they do 2 here and 2 there. They need to do like 7. Okay? Because if they do just 2 or 3, then Republicans come in, they'll do 3 or 4. But if you do 7, right? If you do 7, 5, or 7, that really puts some pressure on Republicans if they get in charge of actually then changing it again, because then you can actually talk about it's done for political purposes. But you change your 7, you put your 7 in, then you change the rules back to 60 majority, right? And you make them change it themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you see that? And like I said with Maya, ramming it through, working, or are Democrats going to be too scared to make some changes like that and then ultimately end up losing the majority in the Senate come 2024? Because I think they're going to have like 20 seats up in 2022.
I think that Joe Biden is not going to mess with the courts. I think the reason why he brought up the whole commission that he would set up is just so people can stop asking him about it right now. I mean, he's kind of a traditionalist when it comes to some of these things. And I appreciate the potential scenario that you made, but Republicans can also come down later and try to shrink the courts. I mean, they didn't mind when we were going through the whole Merrick Garland situation. They didn't mind possibly just having it be 8 for the foreseeable future, and we're talking about even shrinking the bench. Right, exactly. So that's always going to go back and forth. I think that they should, a Biden administration, they should ramp through as much as possible if they have the House and the Senate. I don't think that they're going to do it. I don't know why. They haven't learned the lessons. I'm hoping they've learned the lessons from what happened with Obama and those midterms after his first nomination, his first election. But I don't think that they're going to do it. And I think that there is going to be a price to pay in 2024. I think they're going to make other advances as it relates to areas with healthcare and police reform. But I don't think as it relates to the courts, I just can't see Biden doing something like that. I feel like he's too much of a traditionalist to really mess with it.
And I'm afraid of that too. Misha, given those two perspectives from Maya and Dr. O, and what they've painted, and you said, because you are in lockdown, you've been, absent and taken away. Do you see a different perspective in who gets elected, why they get elected, and how their election impacts us more so than previously when we were discussing it? And before you started, before you locked yourself in your incubator while you're doing your fast, do you see a different perspective now of how impactful each of these levels will be for us if we're not participating on a grand scale?
I mean, yeah, I definitely do. I think I feel it in a different way, just because I haven't been a part of the conversation as much, whether it's on TV or in social media. I knew it before and I know it even more now, but I definitely agree with all the sentiments that were expressed of, like, if nothing else, we have to give the Republicans, whether it's under the Bush administration or Trump administration, they push their agenda unapologetically. And that's one thing that the Democrats do not do. So messaging is one thing, but also having an agenda and not being willing to compromise and always trying to go towards the middle. We have to really focus on what's important and really, push it through, as you said, and do what we need to do to win.
I'm going to take a quick break. If you want to give us a call, give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143. Or you can hit us up in the comment section on Facebook Live, as well as on YouTube. Brian, go ahead and do that.
Yes, this might be any city going about its daily business, but there is something different about it now, because one woman said, "I have had enough."
What do you see when you walk outside? Crime and poverty? Or a sanctuary? What's your issue with the community? Poor education? Lack of resources? Unemployment? Do you see growth? Do you want it? Don't just talk about change. Be the change. Use the power given to you by those who never got to experience it. Or was all this?
How long will it take? We're willing to be beaten for democracy.
For nothing?
Is this how you see us? Because that's not who we are. In reality, we are volunteers. We are entrepreneurs and creatives. We are parents. We're people who feel, who face struggles, who overcome. We're people who use our influence to change our communities. We are what's trending. So this coming season, let's let them know what else we do.
All right, welcome back. Give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143. We were talking about, well, let me switch and go to this voter suppression, voter intimidation things that we're going to have to deal with, Dr. O, and looking at how in these states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, things like that, there's going to be a whole lot that we're going to have to deal with Proud Boys and other folks and everything else coming down on us. There has not been, in my opinion, any real education on how to deal with voter suppression and how to deal with voter intimidation at the polls. And is that something that the party should be doing, or is that something that we as Black folks really need to just educate ourselves in and understand better?
Well, I think historically we've just always had to rely on ourselves to educate ourselves about what to do. And even listening to some of the talk shows, they say, number one, pull out that camera when you see anything going down. Two, call law enforcement if law enforcement is not present. And three, do not engage, because if you do engage and some type of physical altercation comes through, what's going to happen? Yeah, a couple of arrests may be made, but more importantly, they're going to shut down that precinct. And so, hundreds of people aren't going to be able to cast their vote in that particular area. So as relates to educating ourselves, those are the things that we need to be doing. And yes, the DNC should be taking a stronger lead. I saw the Attorney General of Pennsylvania was talking about, if people are going to come out, they are going to be prosecuted and the like. But it's sort of like with magazines, right? We may see something in a newspaper like the Washington Post or Wall Street Journal, but when we see it in Ebony or Essence, we actually believe it. So that's just how it's always been. And it's not going to change with this situation right now. We have to educate ourselves. Each one teach one.
It's crazy like that. Go ahead, Maya. You wanted to say something? Oh, okay. Look, and understanding that the slimmest of margins, because Hillary didn't pay attention to some of the basic Democratic states, Michigan and Wisconsin and things like that. And Biden has moved there. But now the tease of a Texas, of a Georgia, of an Arizona, how will that impact our ability to hold on to what we need, which is a Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania? But still, given what has happened in Texas and how close it is, and given the candidates we have in Arizona and how close it is, and given what Stacey Abrams has done in Georgia, it's those three states are states that if we don't put money and resources behind, we could not only not get the state legislature in Texas, which would be huge, but also I think the state legislature in Georgia being able to maintain it, and then possibly cutting into the advantage in Arizona, and then coming back in 2022 and taking that. Shouldn't they be putting resources there and helping spend money in those areas and getting, like Beto O'Rourke said, get the top of the ticket out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting, first of all, that Texas and Arizona and Georgia are actually in play, and that Florida is still within the realm of, being in play as well. So that just shows that this is a very competitive race, and the Democratic ticket has a good chance of doing some incredible things. But your point is back to something that I think that the Democratic Party has actually failed at, and that is that they got rid of the 50-state strategy. They haven't necessarily been focused on how to do these the chess game instead of the checkers game.
Right.
And the chess game is looking at the judiciary, playing the politics of the judiciary, playing the politics of the state legislatures. Playing in addition to, the standard congressional races, and playing three-dimensional chess. And so, it's important that they, I think, expand the map and invest in these states that have the potential to turn blue, if not this election and the very next election, so that we can actually be looking at a pipeline of activity in different realms that are important. But building a strategy that affects all of these institutions because they're important for the future of our country.
Brandon, there's a lot of Republicans that are supporting Biden because they're disinfected with Trump, and they don't like it. But the reality of it, even like Steve Smith and Lincoln Project. But the reality of it is that after they help him get elected on November 4th, they're going to be fighting against all his policies, right? In some form or fashion. So how does Biden deal with that? I mean, does he get a strong backbone and say, so what? I'm doing my policies for progressives and I'm going down the road? Or does he try to, be that president for everybody, but then compromise with some of these GOP and these battleground red district states and things of that nature, even when folks sort of turn their back on Trump? Because the GOP, the reality for them is, even when Trump is gone, those people, those voters that supported Trump are still there. And they're going to then say, I don't want to support you maybe necessarily, or I'm not going to support that GOP in that district. So how does Biden play that? And more importantly, how do the Republicans play that?
Yeah, I think a lot of Republicans are going to want to, as much as possible, strike the word Trump from anything, any document, any website, etc. However, they won't be able to get away from the legacy. They won't be able to get away from what we've seen over the past 4 years, where, as Dr. O said, Republicans have shown again and again that they're much more interested in power than principle, that they were willing to compromise what I think is the fundamental tenets of the party, the core pieces of the party, for an opportunity to be in a position of power with someone that is at best questionable when it comes to fitness for office, leadership skills, etc., in President Trump, and willing to compromise in order to get control, generational control when it comes to the courts. And so I think there'll be certainly an internal reckoning there for Biden. I think Joe Biden is going to take the approach that President Bush took, and also that President Obama took in having some prominent Republicans vetted for cabinet positions. Now, that's going to give him some problems on the left. There's going to be some pushback there. But Joe Biden, I think, perhaps more than a lot of Republicans, can have an impact on the future of the GOP by potentially by keeping some of these folks that have supported him they're influencing what they're doing moving forward. It's absolutely correct that that some of the things are going to be diametrically opposed in terms of what a Biden-Harris administration would want to do, what progressives would want to do, and what Republicans would want to do. But I think Biden can have a lot of impact on where the party goes in the future. Because if Trump loses, there's going to be a desire to strike a lot of what he's done and go in a different direction. And I think similar to healthcare, with Republicans, wanting to repeal and replace, I think a lot of Republicans want to repeal a Trump administration. They want to repeal a Trump presidency, but they don't know what to replace it with yet.
Right. And Dr. O, how are they going to navigate that? Because you know how the Republicans are. They're going, like Brandon said, they're going to easily try to say, oh, no, well, yeah, I didn't agree with him. He's our party leader. And so, we just went along with it and blah, 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 like Cornyn's trying to do in Texas and a few others are trying to do. But how do they literally become so two-faced and try to do that and then come back on 2021 and try to compromise with Joe Biden to get stuff done and try to act like they want to get rid of all the Trumpianness of what they've been doing, because they have to rely on those voters in their district.
They're going to do it without any conscience, because they have no conscience. And Americans have short memories, so they are literally going to wake up on November 4th and act like nothing happened. You're going to see people like Ben Sass in Nebraska who said, I've always, kept my distance. See what I said underneath that leaked, right? You have the woman running for senator in Arizona who didn't want to say that, she's been riding with Trump from day one. And unfortunately, Americans, we have short-term memories. And Democrats don't do a good job of reminding people of what was done in the past. Republicans will pull everything up. They'll make up stuff relating to the crime bill. They'll go back to, half of America probably thinks Joe Biden actually said super predators when it was Hillary Clinton, but they're quick on the messaging. So my point is they're going to have no problem whatsoever switching up on the next day, because they know that the media is not fully going to hold them accountable outside of a couple of news stories. And they know that the Democrats are not going to really hold their feet to the fire, because the Democrats are going to be so interested in trying to compromise that they're going to welcome these people in. And so that's why I fear that Democrats if they have a big win next week or in the coming weeks, they're setting themselves up for a possible big loss 2 years down the line.
And that's my fear, Misha, is that they're going to do that. And as someone who's sort of outside the bubble in this system, if you will, you're engaged, but you're not engaged to the levels of the rest of the panelists. What would make you sit at home or not engage again in the off-year election? Whatever happens, what can Joe Biden do or not do that will cause you to say, you know what, I'm not going to engage in this off-year election. I'm going to sit at home because they didn't do A, B, or C, or they did A, B, and C and I didn't like it. You're muted.
sorry, personally, I'm going to vote no matter what, because I think, again, it's our civic duty. But also, can I just say, y'all got me going back to my bubble. I'm going to retreat like full speed after this call. It's going to be some pillows. I don't even drink, but then maybe a glass of wine will meet me there. Just so y'all know, I like my bubble. It's nice. But with that said, when I think about sort of even just people in my own neighborhood, and I think about the protests that are going on in the street, I think if he ignores really those rallying cries, you about to lose your job, that kind of language, if he doesn't listen and really, and in those first 4 years or in those first 2 years, really speak to those people, then they're going to stay at home. In the same way they stayed at home when Bernie didn't get the nomination, they'll stay at home again if he ignores them and ignores the progressive agenda. And I think that's one thing that Democrats always mess up on. They try to be centrist instead of really understanding the same way Republicans are. The country is moving and the Democratic Party is moving, and they have to respond to the progressive party.
She hit, I think, right on the nail with the fact that they lose the message. We've only had two messengers. Bill Clinton did a message, the bridge to the 21st century. Obama did his message, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Where is and why is it? And Brandon and Dr. Owen, and we were talking about it earlier. It's been 10, 15 years. Democrats can never get a message. They never have a message and can really articulate that message and hone it in where it resonates with what Misha was saying earlier about kitchen table things, the things that she thinks about every day, and how they can take the crime bill and never understand that the Women's Protective Act was in there, that the drug courts were in there, that all these other things were in the crime bill, that some got, weeded out and the state legislature in state courts and things of that nature, where most of our Black men were locked up in state courts and not federal courts. And they didn't understand the full concept of what the crime bill did. So they weren't really understanding. All they said was Black men got locked up. What is the message that Democrats have to give over this next 8 days, but then the next 2 years and next 4 years and next 6 years? Because the demographics are moving in Democrats' favor, but Democrats, for whatever reason, they sit at home and they're not loyal to the party and voting like Republicans are. They say Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love, and they fall out of love every time. So what's that message that Democrats have to give to make sure that they keep them in that midterm?
So, I think that Joe Biden's Build Back Better, while I think that I would toy with it or tinker with it just a little bit, is actually a message. It's a message that acknowledges that our country is basically falling apart, not just in terms of our social relations, but also in terms of our infrastructure and our nation, frankly, and our environment is falling apart too. So what the Democrats have to do is move an agenda, one that seeks to strengthen the social safety net, because the Democrats actually don't have the luxury of ignoring the coronavirus economy and the devastation that people are living in. That means that they don't have the option of playing footsie with, Social Security privatizers like they did before under Barack Obama's first term, where they tried to cut benefits for seniors and others on Social Security as a part of a grand bargain. They have to focus on food security, economic security, housing security. They have to focus on planetary environmental security. They have to focus on building the infrastructure that never got done, even though it was promised every 2 weeks. And they have to shore up the healthcare system. Because people are hemorrhaging, given all the damage that's been done to the Affordable Healthcare System, Affordable Care Act. So, they don't, even though they might have a unity government that has some Republican faces, and even though they may try to go down a centrist road on some of these issues, the fact of the matter is the reality of the existential reality that we're facing means that they're going to be forced, I believe, to focus hard left on some of these policy issues.
Brandon, as we get ready to close out, it's official. She's been confirmed and she's in there. How does 2020 end? You're muted, Brandon.
Sorry about that. 2020 ends with, I think, this California v. Texas decision and a lot of, I think, protests, a lot of conversation about healthcare and what healthcare, what the decision is going to mean for millions of Americans and what the path forward is going to be. I think 2020 is going to end with a healthcare debate that has been happening in this country since major, healthcare legislation was brought up back, when it was Hillary Care. We're going to have that conversation again to close out 2020 because of this court case coming up and because of the conservative majority that's there and the need for there to be a legislative fix. And something that where you can't rely on the courts to potentially hold it up from a progressive standpoint. So I think that's where it ends. And on some of the other issues, in particular on this issue of the crime bill, I think if I were Joe Biden, every time somebody asked me about crime bill, I'd say that's in the past. But to be forward looking, there are entrepreneurs like Frederick Hudson, who is the CEO of a mobile app called Pigeonly that connects incarcerated individuals to their families, to their communities. One of the biggest things that stops recidivism, so stops people having that revolving door going in and out of the justice system, is having that community connection. Fred spent 4 years on a drug charge, came out, noticed the issue, created a tech company. And so Biden and Harris saying, we're going to support people like Fred, make it easier for people like him to start companies, make it easier for people that are incarcerated to stay connected to their communities so they can reintegrate and have less people incarcerated in the first place. I think could be a message. And I think just building on that, I think we're going to see a lot of new businesses. We've had a lot of businesses closing and the conversation has been there, but to end 2020, a lot of people are at home. This coronavirus, this pandemic has created a new set of problems, and we need entrepreneurs, everyday people at home who are coming up with solutions to these problems to build businesses around them and start scaling those businesses. And I think we're going to see a lot of that innovation, and we're going to need a lot of that innovation if the economy is going to be healthy moving forward. And Biden and Harris would do well to lower the barrier to entry for folks who are starting new businesses and making sure that they have not just the resources, but also the examples of people like Fred to look to to grow their businesses over time.
I'm going to take this call real quick before we close out. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking my call. How are you doing?
Hi.
How are you? I can barely hear you.
Doing well. Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to point out, because I noticed some of the points you made from economic standpoint for Black people in general during the Trump's presidency. And I just want to point out, prior to the coronavirus, all the economic numbers were good. Everything from Black unemployment, a labor force participation rate, home ownership, and most importantly, wage increase. Because if you compare his first 3 years, the national increase was about 3.1%. For African Americans, it was more than 9% increase in wages. So by every economic standard you can point to, the economy was great, not only nationally for the whole country, but more specifically for the Black community. And what we're witnessing right now is a byproduct of the lockdown, which, if people remember, if you go back, Trump was the one that was resisting doing the lockdown, and he was being pressured by the Democrats and the media to implement the lockdown. Because remember, he was the one saying, we shouldn't do it, and they pressured him. And then remember when he wanted to reopen the country in Easter, and they were telling him you can't do that. So to me, it's kind of weird how now, after the fact, Democrats are trying to have it both ways, with like, you were the ones calling for the lockdown. The economic effect we're feeling right now is because of that. And then you're blaming Trump for that when you were the ones pressuring him to do it. It's a backwards way of thinking. And it's almost like revision of history.
Okay, where are you calling from?
Nah. Oh, sorry.
Pennsylvania.
Okay. So
if anything I said that was factually not true, you can show me.
Okay, I'm about to do that. I'm about to do that. There has never been a 9% increase under Trump for Black folks in anything. So first of all,
wage increases
never 9%. It was 3%. And actually, under Obama,
no, that's the national average.
I'm
talking about the national average of 3%. African Americans is 9.1. That's Bureau of Labor Statistics, not my opinion. You can look it up right now.
Wait a minute.
It's a fact, sir.
Hold up.
I don't know where your information is from.
My information is coming from the same
What's
place.
your source on that?
Okay. So let me finish like I let you finish. So first of all, African American wage increase was not 9%. The highest it's ever gotten was 3.5%. It was 3.7%. You can look up on anything, especially the Department of Labor. They will tell you, first of all. Secondly, everything that Trump inherited was the longest economic job growth ever in our history. 87 straight months. Nothing. Hold on.
That was the slowest economic recovery in American history, bro. What are you talking about?
Hold on. I'm not
Oh
finished.
my gosh.
I'm not finished. You can say it was the slowest economic recovery in history, but you cannot deny that 87 straight months of economic growth was the longest in history. So whether or not you thought it should have been faster or slower, no
of course
one.
It's that long. Look where you started from.
Excuse me.
Are you kidding me, bro?
Excuse me.
That's
I let you finish. Let me finish. Then if you want to try to correct me,
but just know you're not talking to some novice who doesn't know what they're talking about. Those
clearly
games
I
might work
am.
on people who don't know the economic facts.
Clearly I
you're
am.
You're not fooling me with that,
dude. Clearly
no,
I am.
No, you're not, because look where Obama started from in 2008.
He started
from such a low point economically. Of course, they're going to have consistent growth from there. That's common sense.
Okay, well then let me take that from you. Then. Hold on. Let me take that from you. So then, where did Trump start? He started from already gaining. So obviously, if he already started from gaining, he can only go
what all the Democrats were saying in 2016, right? Remember they said he's going to cause the economy to crash and everything, but every forecast they made was totally wrong.
Okay,
in fact, every number went up drastically.
No, it did not go up drastically.
There's no economic measure you can point to say it was bad.
Brian, listen, let me help you understand something, because clearly all you're going to do is use your talking points, and your talking points clearly.
Bro, as you're talking about talking points, don't play with me with that. Okay, your talking points are straight out of MSNBC and the DNC.
No,
so don't play that with me.
My facts are from Department of Labor.
You're nothing more than a Democratic operative. Don't try that with me.
Okay, so clearly you one of those ignorant ass niggas that don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because clearly,
I'm ignorant.
If you knew what the hell you're talking about, you wouldn't be talking about
you're
Trump
such
doing
a smart
something.
guy.
So let me ask you this: 30 million jobs have been lost under Donald Trump. Is that an economic boom or is that a depression?
When did those job losses happen? During the pandemic? What was it like prior to the pandemic? Were there job losses?
We were in a decline.
What was the labor
force
participation rate in America under Obama versus where it was for Trump during the first 3 years? What was it? Do you know?
By Obama, jobs rates were greater than Trump's.
No, you didn't hear my question. I said the labor force participation rate.
The labor force participation
higher
rate
under Trump or during Obama?
Okay, the labor force
because
participation
that's the real
rate,
measure for economic growth. But
okay,
you don't know that, I'm sure.
So, go ahead, Brian. Open it back up. Go ahead. So, Dr. O, Maya, would you teach this ignorant ass something, please? And excuse me for my language, ladies. But you know what?
Come on,
when
man.
you deal with dumbass, you have to talk to dumbass.
Where'd you go to school, genius?
Okay.
Where'd you go to school?
What difference does it make where I went to school?
Tell me
Where'd
your
you go to
background,
school?
genius.
Where'd you go to school?
Well, where'd you get your facts from?
Go ahead, O. Go ahead.
So, you know what percentages matter to me with Trump being elected? The fact that hate crimes have increased over 200%. And the number one targets are Black people, followed by Jewish people. That's what matters to me, percentage-wise. What matters to me, percentage-wise, is the fact that even with low unemployment rates of any sorts pre-pandemic, it has always been twice. It has always been twice the unemployment rate of Black people to white people. So the percentages have never gone down. And yes, it's true. Obama created more jobs in his last 3 years than Trump's first 3 years, and that was pre-pandemic. And I wonder what the farmers would tell you about what was happening in their economy before the coronavirus, because I recall the USDA sending out letters to farmers with phone numbers for the suicide hotline because of the way that they were getting played. And Black farmers in this country have still never gotten their due. I'm also mindful of the fact that we have an educational system that is focused on indoctrination and white supremacy, highlighted by Trump's Columbus Day proclamation. and his desire to preserve whiteness. So you can talk about numbers, and let's not even talk about the fact that we got an attorney general that works for the president and cares more about Black Lives Matter protesters without weapons and cares nothing about armed militia groups actually trying to kill governors, which is also on the rise from Trump's rhetoric. So what I care about is the climate. I care about us being under siege. I care about a president who tells us that it's okay to knock people's heads across their cars when they're getting arrested. And he's an overall threat to Black America, regardless of your statistics.
Right. It kills me when people want to talk about, oh, before the pandemic, this happened and he didn't want to shut it down, but this happened. If his ass had done what he was supposed to do with the pandemic, he wouldn't have to shut it down. If he was smart enough to understand that by addressing the pandemic, he could have kept the economy going, he wouldn't have to shut it down. But when you lose 30 million jobs and it's the worst economy since the Great Depression, you don't come to me talking about, well, what's the labor statistic? Hell, nigga, ain't nobody got a job. 30 million people are out of work. So you're sitting here talking about, oh, well, this is going to happen. It was 9%. I looked up because this is the same dude that called me about 3 months ago. I went on while he was talking, went on to the Department of Labor statistics. There has never been a 9% income growth among African Americans under Trump. I went through every darn sector I could find. None of it's there. Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. Maya, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's talking about the median wage growth by race, the 12-month average, that saw Blacks at 0.3% in December of 2019, compared to whites who were at plus 3.4%. But regardless, I'm with Dr. O with regards to the statistics I care about. One of the statistics I care about is the coronavirus itself. I mean, more than 220,000 Americans dead, and disproportionately Black and brown. Depending on the state, African Americans have a 2 to 4% higher rate of death than whites do from this disease. And it is because of this man's disastrous response, lack of response to the coronavirus. He would rather engage in disinformation and misinformation than to come up with a plan and to execute a plan to save lives. And that is why we've had to have multiple shutdowns. That is why our economy is in the tank. It's because they didn't have the competency or the fortitude to develop a plan that relied on the science and the public health experts to make sure that we were doing things right.
And what really gets me, Brandon, is a dude is going to tell me, well, Obama had nothing. He was starting at the bottom, so it had to go up. Well, hell, Trump started when it was up. The only place he could go was either up or down. I mean, you're going to try to compare what Trump did in his first 3 years to Obama, but he inherited 87 straight months of job growth of 200,000 jobs a month or better. His job comparison isn't even comparable to Obama, but yet he's going to sit here and try to tell me, oh, well, it was greater. And what are you talking about? Because you got to look at the labor statistics. I did. There was more jobs created under Obama than Trump, period. End of story.
Yeah. So President Obama certainly laid the foundation. The fundamentals were there for the economy to continue to grow, and President Trump directly benefited from that. Now, his administration certainly made some decisions that have continued that growth over time. But those fundamentals, when you talk about bringing the country from the brink, when you talk about the crisis, that the economic crisis that was at hand when President Obama came into office, and the significant work that had to be done over those 8 years to get the country to a place, to get the economy to a place, to get the fundamentals there where you could have really significant growth over a shorter period of time. That's work that President Obama did. That's work that Joe Biden was a part of, and President Trump certainly benefited directly from it. And if not for that work that the Obama administration did, you certainly wouldn't have seen the kind of growth, whether you want to measure it with the stock market or whether you want to measure it with job growth, et cetera, before the pandemic happened, that that we've seen during the Trump administration. So President Trump certainly owes President Obama. He'll never say that in public, but he owes President Obama the economy that he likes to talk about, and that Republicans like to talk about more generally.
I want to thank you guys for joining me. Excuse me for going off like that, but it just gets me. Misha, thank you for joining me tonight. What's at stake for us, my dear? What's at stake for Black America, given the 8 days we have to go and the future that we're living in? What's at stake?
Yeah, I go back to what I said earlier, like, the soul of America is at stake. And I think to what everyone has laid out in response to the last caller, I mean, just that Black people, our life and our liberty, is at stake, our quote unquote freedom, our ability just to walk around in our neighborhoods and feel like, we're not at risk of dying. And so I think, this election more than any other election really matters, whether it's from the courts and what's going on there to also in our local, in the local elections as well, and sort of the decisions that get made in the courts. So yeah, it's a lot at stake.
Brandon, what's at stake for me, my brother? Not for me.
What's at stake is the future of our country, whether it's some of these fundamental questions about our institutions. Do we change the number of justices? Do we change the filibuster? What's at stake is what options we have from a political standpoint. So where does this party, Republican Party, that has compromised so much over the past 4 years go? And are they going to be a viable option in the future, or will another party arise? Will there be some kind of rebranding? That's at stake. And then certainly when you talk about Black people in particular, our lives are at stake because of healthcare concerns. Our education is at stake, and certainly our future is at stake if we don't have the kind of outcome that I think we all want to see with this election.
Dr. Cummings, Maya, what's at stake for us, my dear?
Oh, I just want to point out that my late husband's book, We're Better Than This, Our Fight for the Future of Our Democracy, he basically lays it out that if somehow Trump manages to secure another term in office, he believed very firmly that we will no longer have a democracy. And so, our country and its democratic norms are at stake. I do think that also our lives, because this man has shown a wanton disregard for the well-being and the health and the livelihood of human beings, whether they're on the border or they're vulnerable to coronavirus. And so, I think that we have so much at stake. This is the zero moment for our nation. And so I encourage every single person out there to mobilize their networks and maximize the vote.
And where can we get the book? And how should we get it? And talk to us and tell us.
Any bookstore, Amazon, your local bookstore, it's wherever books are sold.
And Misha, give us your social media, how we can reach out to you, contact you for I Am, We Are, and other areas that you're working on.
Yeah, please go to IamWeAreYouth.org, and we're on all the social media handles under I Am We Are Youth. And I think from that perspective of what's at risk, what we're really focused on is the mental health of our children and making sure that we create, bubbles. Well, we create communities, though, that provide sense of belonging in a place where during this time where, they're not going to school and, not able to play even in their own neighborhoods in the same way, they have a place where they can still process and talk about what's going on and connect with other youth. And we're connecting youth here in the DC area with youth in South Africa and helping them to see that they have more in common than they do have apart.
And Brandon, what's your social media and how can people follow you?
Yeah, I'm at Yes Brandon on IG and on Twitter. Reach out to me if you have any questions and or if you're interested in Shark Tank. Always interested in meeting entrepreneurs.
Maya, I didn't get yours. What's your social media or emails or?
At Maya R. Cummings on both Twitter and Insta.
And Dr. O, what's at stake for us, my brother? Take us home.
Freedom. Nothing more, nothing less. We will not recognize this country with another 4 years of Donald Trump.
And how can we get in touch with you and follow you and keep in touch?
The website is upstanderinternational.com, and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Omekongo. Just my first name, Omekongo.
Omekongo, Dr. O. I want to thank my guest tonight, and certainly I want to thank you for joining us as well, for tuning in for the last of the series of It's About Us. It's time for the Black Reset town hall meetings. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you supporting us and sticking with us. Of course, as I said, we're looking to do a pre-election night town hall next week. So certainly hit us up on Facebook or on YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter. Let us know of your interest, desire, who you would like us to get, and certainly we'll try to get those individuals here to do the pre-dawn predictions and what's going to happen, because 7 days or 8 days in politics is a long time. Anything can happen. Okay, anything can happen, and it usually does. We did not have this great October surprise like we did in 2016 yet, if you will. I guess the October surprise was everybody in the White House getting the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But I guess that was probably the surprise, but it was really no surprise to anybody because we all knew that their asses were going to get it sooner or later. Okay. So really, look, I mean, come on, people. It is no joke. It's not something we need to play with. 8 days left. We got to get out and vote. We have to get out here and do what we got to do. We got to take this country back. We got to determine the direction of this company. Black people, we got to do a job. We got a job to do. White women, suburbia, yeah, you got a job to do too. You forsake your job in 2016. Okay, you didn't do all you could in 2018. You need to do something in 2020. Okay, as well as Latinos, white men, all this other stuff. We all got to come together, because if you guys are so caught up on the Constitution, then you need to be voting for the Constitution and not letting the rule of law and everything else just go by the wayside just because you want power. Yeah, you will, like I say, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You're going to live and die by that power, because sooner or later it's going to come to haunt you behind. And when the whole nation turns brown, that fear that you have that you're going to get locked up like we did, it's going to come to roost. Because if I got anything to do with it, with the Black Reset, I'm going to make sure it happens. Okay. Trust you me. Okay. I'm going to make sure it happens. And I'm going to get out there and I'm going to work. And I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work without you. So it's up to you. You can join the party or you can be the party. Which way you want to go. So white America, apply the same criteria and vote to save American lives the same way you would do if you were sitting there fighting if this was Obama and you knew, you'd be like, oh, hell to the nah. I need you to go out there and say hell to the nah and come on and vote Biden-Harris and put some reality into your perspective and help us get out there and do the right thing. Help me get rid of this test tube baby, lock him up, throw away the key, because we don't need him to multiply. We just need him to die and go on about his business and go back where he is. Because you would never put up with it if it was Michelle Obama or anybody else doing what this administration has done. You wouldn't put up with it. So stop putting up with it now and let's get together. Let's get out there. It's time for the Black Reset. Put that up, Brian. It's about us, because this time around, we're going to do it. Vote on Tuesday. If you got to stand in line, stand in line. Do what you got to do. As Michelle said, plan your vote. Get your food, get your shoes, get your chair, get your phone, carry extra battery, and let's get with it. I want to thank again Misha Robinson, Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, Brandon Andrews, and Dr. Maya Rockymore Cummings. And I want to thank you for joining us again tonight. If it's social, if it's economic, or if it's political, it's Black Politics Today. Look for us next Monday night, and certainly follow us come the new year. Go to our website, sign up for our Instagram and our Twitter, but certainly get our magazine, Black Politics Today magazine. Get it right there on the website, blackpoliticstoday.com, and join us. We're looking for authors, writers, editors, and ads. See you then. Take care.
Thank you to Black Politics Today, an eye for what's at stake in global politics, with your host, Kelly Michael Williams. Join us live each Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Until next time, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and download us on iTunes at Black Politics Today.